Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. We are here tonight to begin our agricultural forums for the congressional seats that are up for election this year. We hope to get to know the candidates a little bit better and their observations and their views on agriculture and rural issues. And I hope that you enjoy this and find this beneficial, and we look forward to your participation in the future. I will hand it over to Matt. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you very much, Tiffany, and welcome everyone to our very first forum that we've had virtual, which has been an interesting environment to get used to. My name is Matt Martinez, and my wife and myself own radio stations, 4 in Las Vegas and 1 in Albuquerque. I've been in the broadcast business for 20 years, so I've had an opportunity to do a few interviews in my lifetime. I've served 1 term as a city councilor and 1 term as mayor here in Las Vegas. And I was the legislative director for the New Mexico Broadcasters Association. I spent 25 years prior to all of this in the propane industry. So I've had a little bit of a varied background and probably did a few more things. But at this point, it's more important to introduce our candidate running for the 3rd Congressional District. And she is Alexis Johnson, candidate for the 3rd District. Alexis was born in Portales, New Mexico, and attended New Mexico Institute of Mining and Technology, where she earned a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Engineering. Alexis' career experience includes working as an environmental engineer with Larson & Associates, a nuclear provider with Exelon Power, and an oil and gas consultant, and as a cattle rancher. We are excited about the opportunity to know Alexis on a deeper level and hear about how she plans to work on behalf of New Mexico's agricultural community. So at this time, I'd like to introduce Alexis to the agricultural world. And please, Alexis, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Mr. Martinez, and the New Mexico Farm and Livestock Bureau, as well as the other persons that have been helping out and coordinating everything. I really appreciate the opportunity to represent the northern New Mexican district and also the southeastern part of New Mexico. So for all of you that are not aware, I just wanted to give you a little idea of the District 3. It encompasses part of Albuquerque on the northern area, as well as your Rio Rancho, your Santa Fe, and your Diné, your Navajo Nation, your Jicarilla Apache Nation, as well as all of your pueblos. Clovis and Roosevelt County are included. So I am a daughter of Roosevelt County. I grew up there in southeastern New Mexico. I was raised in Roswell by my loving grandparents. And I then attended school in Socorro, New Mexico at New Mexico Tech, where I attained an engineering degree in environmental engineering. And I later went to find employment. In New Mexico, I wasn't able to find employment. So I worked there in Midland for some time, servicing the Permian Basin in the oil and gas industry. So as you know, oil and gas in southeastern New Mexico is closely tied to ranches and cattle and what have you, because a lot of the land that is used, we work together. So a lot of my career focused on working together with the community, regulators, to make sure that we were had an economy, kept people employed, produced, and were respectful to our environment. So I take a lot of those ideas and balancing acts here in this congressional race. So I've been married for 10 years to my husband, Chris Johnson, and I have 4 beautiful, lovely children. Some of those being multiples. I had twins, so that's a little bit about me. I attend Our Lady of Guadalupe here in Santa Fe. And I'm just really excited to share with you a little bit about who I am and what I would like to do here in District 3. And basically, I am not here to be anyone's boss. I'm here to come to the constituents, see what the needs are, learn, and together come up with solutions. And I think that is really lacking in not only the industry of farming and ranching, but in all other industries here in New Mexico. Really, my position is a servant leader, and that really should be brought back to New Mexico and to the U.S. government. So I want to thank you again. Muchísimas gracias, and I'm excited to answer some questions.
Thank you very much, Alexis. And I'll start off with a very first question. In times of critical drought, how can you ensure that water allotted to agriculture makes it to the state's farmers and ranchers? That's the first part of the question. And how should water utilization be prioritized during this trying and limited times?
Well, here in New Mexico, water is life. Throughout the generations of our families, passed down on and on, from the farming and ranching businesses there in Clovis to dairy production to the selling of your beef cattle. In all areas of New Mexico, whether it's up in Navajo Nation or Farmington, it is critical that we have water. So part of the reason why I became an environmental engineer was to protect that resource. But as you know, we are in dire need of water. When there's no water flowing, our industries are at a loss. So, I would like to make sure that we look at provisions to provide changes in the existing agreements, because when we don't have water, New Mexico is hurting, and we need to work with Texas to negotiate, these existing provisions to our farmers and our ranchers. As you know, there's a priority in regard to your water allotment, but that our farmers and ranchers should be high up on that list. But our history goes way back. Something that I could work on is on the federal level, working together with our state and our local industries to make sure, say, the Bureau of Reclamation has agreements to allow for farmers and ranchers to be able to utilize that water for their needs. So, we really need to revisit a lot of these agreements to make sure that we can produce and meet our obligations as well. So, I would like to work together with the community, the ranchers and farmers, and really let them know the programs that are available on the federal level to assist them in getting that water and being educated on what programs exist and becoming a part of this process, of the governmental process. It's very important to have the farming and ranching voice represented, not only federally, but I also want to say on the local level, in your community, and on the state level.
Thank you very much, Alexis. Let's move on to the second question. The Farm Bill is vitally important to New Mexico's farmers and ranchers. What are your thoughts regarding the preservation of beneficial programs within the bill? And how would you help your constituents take advantage of these resources that are often available but challenging to access?
I think here what we need to have is communication. We need to communicate to the ranchers and the farmers to know about the programs available. So, we have these programs that are going on in the Farm Bill and what have you, but we really need to make sure that this is communicated all the way down to the local level so that the farmers and ranchers can best utilize these resources and, their land and their cattle and what have you, and production. So I seek to make New Mexicans first and make sure that we have everything that we need to be able to do business. We need to be able to sell our cattle. We need to, and I'm thinking about, why don't we have meat processing here in New Mexico? These regulations that have made things so strict where we have to outsource a lot of our production really should be turned around so that we can have processing in New Mexico, right here where we have our beef cattle. And I think that's the area that we need to go, is putting, the industry back into play here in New Mexico.
And in regards to taking advantage of the resources that are available but challenging to access, what's your ideas in that?
Well, we need to have a go-between between federal regulations and the citizens. We need to have the opportunity for the farmers and ranchers to become involved in the process of getting these resources. So just because you have a law, but nobody knows of the existence or nobody knows of that resource, then what good is it if we can't enact it and provide that opportunity? So like I said, again, communication is going to be key in, providing money to communicate, having information sessions, having persons that are able to go between the regulations and also bring it to the farmer and rancher.
Thank you very much. Now, what is your opinion on how the Endangered Species Act is being administered here in New Mexico. It's quite comprehensive.
Here in Santa Fe, and this is one of the reasons why I decided to run, I saw such a far left assault on the usage of God-given land resources. Now, I'm going to give you a prime example. Whenever there was the ruling in Arizona about we can't cut down trees, we can't cut down trees because of the spotted owl. So no trees are being cut. Forest management has not taken place. You know, there in Cuba, you're having issues with the cattle going in and out of the trees, and we need to be able to manage it. But we can't even manage the land. And, you know, we're told how many cows we can have on certain areas. And, you know, and also the wolf coming in and taking out some of the livestock. And there's really nothing that can be done. So the farmer and rancher is inundated with many federal agencies that have government control. And I really want to see the voice brought back to the people and their voices to be taken into account. You know, what happens when you have tree after tree after tree all packed in together? You have the potential for a high intensity fire. You take out the industry of lumber, the lumber mills, you know, and the people in areas like Las Vegas in northern New Mexico, where they're not even able to cut their own firewood from the forest like they did every year. So you're literally and figuratively putting the New Mexican out in the cold. And I think that a lot of these ideas sound good and they sound very altruistic and like, oh, we're doing a great job for the animals. But you know what? I respect New Mexicans, and I think that New Mexicans need to be uplifted and held with the same respect here in Santa Fe. So I am here to fight for what I consider to be the forgotten voice, and let them know that not all the ideas that you have in regard to the environment come out with a positive outcome. So I am very much an advocate of the farmer and rancher being able to utilize their land, because I know that they do know best. They manage the land in a way that generations of their children can use the land. So these ideas that, you know, the farmer and rancher is not being conscientious of the environment. The farmer and rancher is one of the best stewards of the environment. And we really need to promote the voice of the New Mexican. And really, that's what I'm here to do.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to ask the audience that's listening to go ahead and add a question that we may ask the candidates via the chat function on the Zoom meeting that's taking place. We're going to be taking 3 audience questions. So if you have a question that you'd like to ask Alexis, please go ahead and use the chat function and start submitting your questions at this time. Alexis, let me go back to another question. What should the United States do to change its immigration system? If elected, how do you see your office engaging on the issues of agricultural labor, ag guest worker program, and border security?
Well, I think that, you know, the employees in farming and ranching, you know, they are critical in getting the product out to the consumer, and for the farm and ranch to receive a profit and make use of their land. You know, we need to have the work, but I think we need to make sure that these individuals that are here from Mexico are actually guest workers, and we need to, you know, make sure that they have a safe environments. And I really want to work together to make sure we have a guest worker program that allows them to be here and not go through all the struggles that we've seen with visa status, with immigration status, or holdups at the border. And the end result is the employer not having the workforce to carry out the work, whether it's in the dairy industry or even, you know, produce, processing the produce. So we need a balanced approach. And also I would advocate for background checks. You know, if individuals that have been here before and what have you, you know, we need to make sure that people are safe, and, you know, restricting those that have criminal records in the United States that are extreme. You know, we need to make sure that our families are safe. So I think, you know, working together to making sure that our workers are taken care of, and also that they have the guest worker programs that do not prevent them from working here and then returning home. So I'd want to work together. And also, please let me know your ideas and your thoughts, because I do not know everything, and I would really like to hear what everyone has to say. And you can also email me at alexis@alexisjohnsonnm.com.
Thank you very much, Alexis. And just to go back a little bit, what do you think about border security in regards to immigration?
We need to have border security. We know that many drugs come through the border at the ports of entry. We need to have increased surveillance and monitoring of these ports of entry to scan for illegal drugs that are being brought in. Do you know, in our District 3, that we have the 2 counties that have the highest rate of substance abuse? And so it is a travesty to know that they're coming all the way up to the northern part of New Mexico, and you have generations that are lost. You have the abuelos that have transferred the water rights to their grandchildren, because a whole generation has been lost in certain parts of northern New Mexico. And so we can do better. We can do better to make sure that the rights of the Mexican nationals that are coming over here are protected. And what I mean by that is a secure border, so that we decrease sex trafficking and also the passage of drugs. I believe in a physical barrier, but I also know that the Rio Grande meanders along the border, and when those areas that we cannot put a wall per se, we can use advanced technology such as our drones or more boots on the ground. And we also really need to take into account the land, the land usage on that border region that does involve farming and ranching. So we need to make sure that that is not making it difficult for our farmers and ranchers to conduct their business. But as you know, along the border, there is a lot of human rights issues that can carry along into these farm and ranch lands. That is a travesty. So I'd like to work together with Mexico to make sure that their economy is thriving, so that the people are more prone to stay in their own country, because a lot of people do not want to have to leave their families, do not want to have to go. They want to be able to be there, but we need to make sure that if they're a guest worker, they can come and then they can return when the season is over, and really work to make sure that we are hearing all of the voices.
Thank you very much. And again, folks, for you that are viewing the forum, please utilize our chat box to submit questions to us. And we'll be taking a few of those questions latter part of this forum. Let's jump on over to our next question, Alexis. How important is the development of trade agreements to you? And what is your stance on the USMCA and how it's being implemented? Do you see any major challenges or issues with the new agreement?
Well, there needs to be programs to promote American agricultural industries. Before sending our products overseas to the big processors and then return back to the USA, and we don't even know what inspections went on, or the ensuring that we have safe food to eat. So I think there is a lot of issues going on with the sending out of our beef and then it leaving and coming back. I would really like to see New Mexican processing facilities. I would like to see regulations come out where we are able to make New Mexican beef, and sell to our community from our land and go to the consumer. But there's so much red tape and runaround that I think the farmer and rancher is really at a disadvantage when you're talking about selling of their products. It's a back-breaking job. It's a job that is very worrisome, taking care of all of your animals and all of the seasons and making sure you have water. It's very stressful. And the last thing that we need is outside of New Mexico, outside of the country, taking profit or processing when we can have these jobs in the United States. So for the trade agreements, I promote American agriculture industry, whether that's our beef, our milk, all of this production. I promote the farmer and rancher. So, and also again, please let me know if there are particular issues that are sensitive to you that I am not bringing up. so that we can together talk about it. Because this, again, I am not the boss here. This is a situation where I come together with the farm and ranch community, the constituents, and we work together and for your best interest. That's what this is all about. So no more of the one-sided views that we may be getting. And I really am looking forward to being your next U.S. Congresswoman.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to start off with a few questions from our audience. Thank you, audience, for submitting those. And again, if you have a question to ask of the candidate, please submit your question into the chat box. And our very next question comes from a sheep producer. And they say, as sheep producers, we use guest workers through the H-2A program. Would you support the H-2A program, and do you have ideas to make the process better and easier for producers to utilize the program?
I do support the H-2A program. I support our guest workers coming over and being able to very quickly get into their employment. So I think that, you know, any red tape that is holding that up, we need to relax so that we can make sure that they're not held up at the border, they cannot come. I would like to see a more streamlined process to make sure that coming from Mexico to the location of employment, that is more of a seamless transition. And there is a lot of work to be done on our immigration system and making sure there's no visa problems, there's no holdup, and that we are able to have an economy and produce our God-given resources and efforts, you know, for our betterment. So I do support that. I think that we can always improve. And by all means, please give me some information that you may have where you see any areas of concern.
Thank you very much. And again, we want to thank the folks who are sending in questions. We've got a few more that we're getting. The next question, Alexis, is this. How would you help provide high-speed internet to rural New Mexico? You probably already know that that's a big issue in our state.
Well, yes, I think we really need it. I mean, from the children that are home that are needing to be educated in where I'm at up north of Las Vegas, it is difficult to have internet access. And for some families that are not able to afford this satellite service or what have you, we need to make sure that New Mexicans all over the state have broadband access. I totally support funding for this. And for me, it's a health and safety concern because with COVID, that may hit different pockets in New Mexico, perhaps coming again, we don't know, in January or February. It's taken Ben Ray too long to implement this. We've seen in the Navajo Nation the suffering that occurred. If we had, you know, this telehealth to make sure people were given proper advice and medical treatment, that is something that we can also use this broadband for a safety for all New Mexicans, so that we can have our appointments online and not have to travel to maybe some areas that have been hit with the coronavirus, or in the future may have an outbreak in the local community. We can use our telehealth to see the doctor maybe for a cold, if you just have a cold or the flu, instead of going into the facility. So I 100% support our broadband, and I think it's great for business opportunities out in the field. We have such awesome technologies being employed, from tractors to all kinds of different very innovative systems that will use internet access to make sure that we are efficiently working with technology in our farm and ranch industry. And we can also use different ideas such as drones. And these drones have the capability of providing a different type of management to see the property, to look at the cattle, or different zones that have grass, do not have grass, or areas that you may need to keep up in regard to fencing. So I think broadband is an excellent infrastructure item that we need to push forth. It's being pushed forth in Congress right now, but it's definitely taken way too long. And in January, if I am the selected candidate, nominee, I will definitely promote our broadband access. It has a lot of potential in the farm and ranch industry, as well as educating the children and our health.
Yeah, thank you. And folks, we're visiting with Alexis Martinez Johnson, who's running for the U.S. House District Number 3. And the New Mexico agricultural community is putting these forums on, so we're very grateful for the candidates to join us here. And also for all the folks behind the scene here actually with us today who have spent many hours putting these programs together so you get an opportunity to know your candidates a little bit better. Next question, Alexis, is the animal agricultural community is increasingly come under attack. What are your thoughts about how to protect the agricultural industry from extremist groups that seek to eliminate our way of life?
Well, I think the best thing you can do is to vote for me. Well, on a more a serious note, you know, we really need to have our farmers and ranchers at the table. And the reason I got into this race is because I didn't see, as a native New Mexican, as a daughter of New Mexico, I didn't see my place at the table. And isn't it a shame to see outside money and outside interests tell New Mexicans how they should live? And unfortunately, I did not feel and do not feel currently that our leaders are listening. So you'll hear a lot about me saying the forgotten New Mexican and traditional family values. And that's because I was raised with a core set of beliefs that permeates into farming and ranching. And what that means is hard work, perseverance, grit, and outright New Mexican pride. I don't think that we need to use this Endangered Species Act and have such restrictive laws on the farmer and rancher. When you have to report to 7 federal agencies, I think we really need to amend these laws so that we can live a more freer life without such extreme government control. And we can do what our God-given intent provides, to utilize our land with our family and to make a living, provide a roof over our head, food on the table, educate our children, and do all this in a safe manner. And my children are right now with their vacas and with their gallinas playing out in northern New Mexico. And quite frankly, I wouldn't have it any other way, because even though I live in Santa Fe, the farm and ranch way of life is an American way of life. And I look forward to representing the interest of the farm and livestock community.
Thank you very much, Alexis. Next question, also from someone viewing. We thank you very much for that question. What do you think of the Democrats' plan to get rid of fossil fuels in New Mexico and replace them with wind and solar?
Well, you know, Mr. Martinez, 39% of our revenue into New Mexico comes from the oil and gas industry. And it is not only the exhaust from the cars that people think about from the far left, but they don't think about all of the wonderful products in our community that have come from oil and gas, such as, you know, our N95 masks are the gowns that keep us safe, and a lot of the products that we have on the machinery and equipment, and obviously the fuel that we use in farming and ranching. So, you know, to do away with oil and gas is a foolhardy approach. And this administration here, not only in Santa Fe, but the far left, such as my opponent, advocate for ideas such as the Green New Deal, and hopefully they won't attack the cows, I hope. So, you know, what I'm saying is that we need to come together, irrespective of party, and really listen to the constituents and work with sound engineering. So I'm an environmental engineer by trade, and I really want to use my skills and expertise and listening to the community's needs to come up with legislation that will promote utilizing all different types of energy, whether that's our geothermal energy, new fuel cells, our new nuclear fuel cells, and the sun doesn't always shine, nor does the wind always blow. And quite frankly, you have to source very rare elements to produce these solar panels. So if you want to have the biggest mining increase, then that's what you're looking at when you're looking at coming up with a lot of solar panels. In addition, with a 20-year life on some of these turbines or solar panels, there is a lot of waste produced. So, you know, these ideas are okay, but I think that we need to work together. It's not the end all be all. So, you know, one of my opponents, she advocates for a lot of this Green New Deal and things like this. And really, it doesn't make economic sense. and it will put many New Mexicans out of jobs. And people, quite frankly, will go elsewhere. They will not be here to be employed by the farm and ranch industry. They will go elsewhere where their children can have the money for education. You know, what will we replace the monies that we're getting into our education if oil and gas is gone? And so I do not support the Green New Deal. I do not support outside money, California and New York, telling New Mexicans what their values are and how to utilize their land.
Thank you very much. And we've already maxed out our number of questions, but I do want to ask a couple more if I can. This goes to, you know, if elected, how do you plan to get the information of the work you're doing in Washington back to the agricultural community, or as a matter of fact, any New Mexican, about the work that's being done in Washington? I think too many times a lot of people go with a lot of energy and they just don't get that information to the constituency, and in this case, the agricultural community.
Well, you know, I love the United States, but I love New Mexico, and I will be here and have offices here in New Mexico. There in Curry County, in Roosevelt, have an office in the area, have an office in, obviously, you know, Santa Fe and some of the other areas, Farmington, Clayton. You know, we have cattle going over there in Harding County. I don't know if I'll put an office there since it's the least populated county in the United States, but, you know, it's really important to come back to the constituency, see what the needs are, and represent New Mexicans. And it's about time that the New Mexican voice was represented.
Thank you very much. Another question in from one of our viewers this evening is, what do you see as the biggest opportunity for New Mexico agriculture in the future?
You know, I'm glad that you brought that up. There in Las Vegas, I talked to a man and he said that I come from a long line of butchers. And he said, but, you know, I'm not passing that down to my son because that was all closed down. We don't have a processing facility here. You know, that was taken over by another entity that actually brought in beef from another area. So, you know, I think that manufacturing processing is an area that we could have here in New Mexico to provide jobs. And secondly, I would like to see land opened. Why is land closed to New Mexicans? This is the land of our ancestors, and it should be opened for all of our usage, for the animals that we have, our cattle, and even, you know, sheep and everything like this. The land needs to be open and given back to New Mexicans and not taken over by extreme federal government control. We are a rich state. Everybody says, oh, pobrecito, and that means, you know, oh, New Mexico, oh, you know, this and that. But you know what I see? I do not see a victim state, and I have never seen a victim, not only in myself, nor the state of New Mexico, nor the people. We are hardworking people, and I'd like to see jobs and the usage of our land so we can pass down to our children.
Thank you very much. Another question that's been sent in to us: how do we keep and encourage more young farmers and ranchers here in New Mexico?
That's a great question. You know, these programs that we have in the community, such as our Future Farmers of America and the mentorship from the community, is key, and showing them the methods that have been used in time before and the new methods that some of our younger children can show us, utilizing technology and advancement. I think that we have a beautiful state, and I'd like to see more of these Zoom meetings and more, hopefully, opening of New Mexico so that we can get together and have our rodeos and show the children the pride and traditional farming and ranching that, you know, we are taught. I'd like to see more of a promotion of information online, and also resources that we have as far as money put in to making mentorships and community centers available to teach the children and youth and young adults farming and ranching as a career, as a proud career that provides the very life of this entire United States.
Thank you very much, Alexis. I'm not too sure if we have any more questions. We got one just in as I'm speaking here. Next question also in from someone viewing. How do we get native New Mexicans who have always been Democrats to realize that their party is no longer taking care of native New Mexicans, especially those in rural communities?
That is the very basis of this campaign. This is no longer the party of my abuelos, where the JFK community would say, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. New Mexicans are a very proud and hardworking people, and it's time that we lift up and work together for our future. I think we need to have the door open instead of the door closed, and our rural community is key to that. They're the very essence and foundation of what it means to be an American. So, I just promote working together, working with our community, and showing them traditional New Mexican values. So when I go into the homes here in New Mexico, I don't really need to talk about I'm from this party or I'm from that party. I just talk about my values. I talk about how I do not promote ending the life of the babies in the very late stages. That is foreign. I talk about my necessity to have a firearm and for that right not to be infringed upon. And I have a respect for law and order. And I'm going to tell you right now, those are universal values that people of all parties in New Mexico are seeing that make sense to them, a majority. So the idea that outsiders have come into New Mexico and taken over is the message that I'm letting people know that has happened and is continuing to happen. With my opponent, you will see the special interests have taken over. So she can no longer stand for the New Mexican. And because we don't have the dollar to put in her pocket, then that means we don't have a voice. But there's something that's more valuable than money, and that is your vote. And how much is a New Mexican vote worth? And I'm here to say that I'm here to represent La Familia, and that means all races, cultures, genders, everything. I'm here to make sure that our voice is taken into account. And I wasn't picked by my Republican Party. They didn't pick me. I wasn't an insider. I didn't have political wealth. I didn't have the finances either. But I got the voice of the people, and they came through and elected me to be the nominee. So I hope and humbly ask for your vote. And muchísimas gracias. If you have any questions, please check out my website, alexisjohnsonnm.com, and please send me an email at alexis@alexisjohnsonnm.com.
We have a couple more questions, Alexis, if you don't mind.
Good.
This other question coming in also from someone viewing this evening. What would you do to protect our Second Amendment right?
I have been on the forefront, Mr. Martinez, protecting that right. Here in Albuquerque, let me tell you what's going on for those of you that may not know. They considered the Civic Plaza area a school zone. Even though there's no school in that area, they utilized a school zone designation to make sure that people in that area could not carry a firearm. I am against these type of measures that bend the rules of our Constitution. We should be able to carry a firearm. I also want to bring up a second point. Here in Santa Fe, during this COVID, a couple weeks ago, they had a gun buyback, and they involved our law enforcement, the Santa Fe Police Department. We pay taxes to the Santa Fe Police, and they were working in conjunction with a group that was doing a gun buyback with the purpose of gathering guns and paying people money and just destroying the guns. Well, I'm here to tell you that Second Amendment is very clear and it's very simple, and that right shall not be infringed upon. And, whenever we had the gun shops closed during COVID, that was a big red flag for me, because in crisis or no crisis, when do we have our constitutional rights taken away from us? There should never be a time where we are prevented from our God-given rights. And that is why the United States was founded. It was founded on that US Constitution. So I am very pro Second Amendment, and I will always advocate for that. I was there in Santa Fe when they were going through the deliberations with this red flag gun bill that did pass. And I'm going to tell you right now, on one side of the aisle, they had New Mexicans of all shapes, colors, and creeds. And on the other side, they brought in a whole one demographic of young children to go against the rights of gun owners. So what I want to tell you is we cannot just listen to a small group of people. We need to listen to all the counties in New Mexico who said, the majority of counties said that they did not want their gun rights restricted. And so I know I can go on and on with this, but I want to make it very clear that I am an advocate for gun rights. When I'm out in the rural community, out on my ranchito with my 4 children and my husband has gone into town, I have to be able to protect myself.
Thank you very much. Another question that's been sent in was, how do you feel about medical marijuana farms moving into the rural areas? And the viewer is also asking, they don't respect, or he's commenting, they don't respect the community, don't hire locals, and often use water illegally.
You know, I found out something very interesting. This is not something that I don't know about. I was just in our Navajo Diné lands, and what I saw there was very saddening. I literally saw marijuana farms, you know, security measures being taken, illegal use of the land in Navajo Nation. And I am not opposed to farming hemp. I'm not opposed to that. But I do think that we need to make sure that no illegal usage of water, more so than what you need for the area, is done, and that the environmental concerns, you know, if you're dumping sewage and pesticides right into the river, well, that's a problem. So I think that, you know, I don't have a problem with agricultural products such as hemp and the business and economy that can be had from there. But when you're circumventing laws and you are having workers where there's questionable conduct in regard to the practices, laws are made to protect our community. And I think that we need to be very watchful in regard to these hemp farms. But I promote business, so I think that we need to make sure that those regulations are intact to utilize the land in a proper way, that we are respectful to our neighbors, our community, and the environment.
Thank you very much. And again, folks, we're visiting with Alexis Martinez Johnson, candidate for New Mexico District 3 in Congress. And that election takes place on November 3rd. So make sure you mark your calendars, and don't forget the election day for our general election this year. Another question sent in by one of the viewers this evening: how do we get Americans to respect and honor the work of farmers and ranchers instead of supporting everything in government to make it harder and harder to raise food for our nation and the world?
I think when we talked about earlier mentorship programs, I think that's key. Even having some of these classes when we get back going into school, you know, having more of an agricultural foundation in high school or even in middle school, because the children, they can learn early. Even in elementary, they can have field trips to really understand what a farm and ranch way of life is. And you know, the kids are really fascinated by it. They love to understand, and I think it really starts with our youth and with our community support and programs such as 4-H. So I totally support mentorship and communities getting together to share information.
Thank you very much, Alexis. I think what we need to do is just, first of all, let everyone know that as part of the forum tonight, the organizations do not, the New Mexico Agriculture Community, excuse me, does not endorse or support any candidate running for political office. And we have invited all candidates to participate. The reason for this is for people in the agricultural community to know their candidates that are running for these offices, and hopefully they'll be able to judge those candidates by the way they respond to their questions. At this point, I want to thank the New Mexico agricultural community for putting this forum on for all of our viewers this evening, and I imagine that it would be available to be seen at a past date, at a time in the future where you want to come back and look at this video. I would imagine that that will be available. Tomorrow we'll be conducting another forum at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and that will include candidates running for the Senate. And we're excited about that one because that one's going to be tomorrow. And from what I understand, all 3 candidates will be on that forum tomorrow. What I'd like to do is also thank Tiffany Rivera and Daylene for helping us put this thing together, for being our organizers and our timekeeper. And I do want to thank the candidate for taking time out of her very busy schedule to meet with us this evening. Oh, and the forum will be posted on NMF and Albi on your YouTube channel, so they'll be able to see this in the future. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to you, Alexis, so you can tell us a little bit about your closing comments. And please, at the very end, if you don't mind, include information of how people can get a hold of you and your campaign.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez, and everybody here on the New Mexico Farm and Livestock Bureau and in the community. I am very excited to return the voice of New Mexicans. And like I said, I'm a mother of 4 children. I've been married to my husband almost 10 years. We go back and forth between Santa Fe and Las Vegas. I'm an environmental engineer. I bring a very unique skill set in that I'm a solutions-based candidate. And I am here to promote traditional family values and New Mexican interests. I am not here to provide edicts or to do a top-down control. I am here to return the voice to the people, work together for the solutions that we need for a better New Mexico. And I am super excited to make sure that New Mexicans have a roof over their head, food on their table, or have a safe environment and can educate their children. And that's what I stand on. If you guys need any information, if you have any advice or any questions, you can always contact me at alexis@alexisjohnsonnm.com. You can reach me on Facebook also at Alexis Johnson NM. It is very important to me to listen and to hear your voice, to hear your concerns, because I think here in New Mexico, that is lacking. I totally 100% promote farm and ranch because that is the way that I have raised my children, and I will continue with those ethics that I have lived on, which is hard work, perseverance, grit, and of course, all of the pride that we carry with us. And I'm so glad to be on this forum. Muchísimas gracias. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Alexis Martinez Johnson, for being with us today. And folks, thank you very much for being with us this evening. We appreciate your time, and we understand that getting the candidates as close to you as possible is important for the agricultural community here in New Mexico. From all of us here, that is Tiffany, Delaney, and myself, Matt Martinez. Have yourselves a very great evening and keep yourselves informed. Thank you and good night.